Call to order the Plaquemine Port Harbor and Terminal District at 3 o'clock on July 22nd, 2021. Let's proceed with roll call. All right, Mr. Arbo will lead us in the prayer. Mr. Patholoby in the pledge.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all, and for the wisdom to know which is right from wrong, and the courage to do that which is right. Amen. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray that we will be spared from all harm and destruction this hurricane season. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Just want to say the chair is absent today. I want to recognize our Assistant Secretary, Ms. Barbara McCott. She is, this is her last day here, helping our Council Secretary with the port. She's been a great asset being part of this team, so thank you very much. She's been with us for 10 years, and she's ready to retire, so congratulations.
Thank you, Councilmember Newberry.
I also want to note we have a birthday in the house. Dr. Gooey, happy birthday.
I'll take her.
All right.
39. And holding.
All right, we have no executive session. We'll move to the Executive Port Director's report.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chairman and members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemine Port Harbor and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 9 through 21 July 2021. During this time frame, we toured the industrial zone parcels 1 through 6 with members of the Maritime Pilots Institute. We have met them at their office in Covington on a few occasions. They are a modeling company that set up simulations for pilot training and are used by port authorities to do aqua forensics for new port facilities. They wanted to get a first-hand boots on the ground feel for the PPHTD Maritime Campus, so we took them out last week. We met with members of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, reviewing the container terminal project and all things rail-related in support of the rail mainline extension project to include the rights-of-way, permitting third-party improvements, DOTD highway right-of-way coordination, and engineering supervision. It was agreed we will set up standing meetings monthly as a minimum to aid in coordination and progress as we move forward in building the container terminal. We coordinated and participated in a meeting with the owners of Port Ship Services and Infinity Engineering to conduct a progress review of all engineering plans for their new location down the river, and this is regarding parcel B3, which everyone is familiar with. This week, we also conducted an all-day session with the port stakeholders regarding the container port project. Present were rail, terminal, warehousing and intermodal, and river cargo movement company representatives. Business plans were updated and validated, and future meeting dates were established. On the Venture Global front, we were able to enter into leases 2 weeks early due to the no hiccups by the Port Board and Venture Global and all the attorneys. And lastly, I know that the deputy just recently passed out a FEMA notice, but the port was awarded $776,000 in port security grants. It was the second largest in the state following Port of St. Bernard. Madam Vice Chairman, this concludes my report, subject to your questions of the board or our audience.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Mr. Russo?
Yeah, Mr. Sanders, you said that the Venture Global lease has been executed,
Yes, sir.
and the effective date is when?
The 19th,
19.
Monday, the 19th, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Mr. Kognovich?
Yes, not such a good note. I got a complaint from a parish resident from last meeting between him and Paul Matthews on the stairs of the council chambers. I want to know if you handled that or.
I did. I diffused it. I think it was boyish banner, and I don't think it's something that would have to come up to a board meeting, but if it does, it was handled.
Because they just passed a new policy manual that was into, his.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The new policies y'all passed has that in there, that the way you act in public and meetings and all, so.
I will look into it further, but as far as I'm concerned, and if the two individuals agree, I think this is taken care of.
All right, thank you.
Okay, but I will dig into it, and apologies were made. Okay.
No, they were not.
Yes, they were. I was right there, and I heard it. All right, go ahead. Anybody else?
Anyone else from the board?
I'm not really familiar with it, but we did pass policy, and are you following the policy and dealing with the issue that we are discussing? Or have you reviewed the policy?
I
to see
will
what-
review the policy and report back to the board if I feel that it's necessary.
Well, don't you think you should report back to us one way or the other?
Granted, will do.
Thank you.
Let's just say this, let's put that on our agenda for our next meeting, and we'll see how we're going to
Ma'am?
address. Let's put this on our meeting, our next agenda, so our next meeting between myself and the chair.
Okay.
We'll discuss it, and we'll
Yes,
go
ma'am.
from there on how we approach it. Okay. Any comments from the audience? Please state your name and your address.
And Donald Valet, Bill Chase. I'd like to recommend a couple of things to the staff and to the board. I've been receiving weekly update reports from the Port of New Orleans on the Louisiana International Terminal that's being developed in Violet that we've talked about so many times, which is basically our competition. I think if we got something in writing every week to the public as similar to what's going on and what we do receive from the Port of New Orleans, it's very helpful, it's very informative, and there's no secrets, and it lets everybody know who, where, and what. Second thing I'd like to mention to you, Saturday, there's going to be a celebration of life for Billy Bergeron. Mr. Bergeron formerly was with the Port of New Orleans. He was the chairman of it, and most recently, he was chairman of the Chalmette Port. He was very instrumental in getting the international terminal put together, funding from the state, and there's going to be a celebration of life in his honor Saturday, 2 o'clock, at the port in St. Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Valet. Anyone else? All right, let's move forward. Financial report and budget to actual.
I have it ready to go. It's here. We got it in HDMI. Checking my display first.
We're having a little technical issue.
Yeah,
Christian, could you please come and assist us?
There it is. I switched the ports. Good afternoon. All port commissioners have been provided a 2021 total budget report and detailed budget report with actual expenditures shown as of June 30th, 2021. This is the port's 2021 second quarter financial report. As of June 30th, total budget reflects total revenue budget reflects a 78% amount of the budget remaining, with a budget amount of $12,606,766, and as of June 30th, $2,737,589 of that revenue has been earned. Total expenses, total personal services, we are currently at 60% of the budget remaining, with a budget amount of $2,995,519. As of June 30th, $1,185,197 has been expended on total personal services. Total financial services, we are currently have 70% of the budget remaining, with a budgeted amount of $7,852,431. As of June 30th, $2,341,526 has been expended. Total operating services, we currently have 72% of the budget remaining, total budget amount of $2,944,354. As of June 30th, $819,325 of that has been expended. Total capital outlay budget for 2021 is $3,029,631,000. As of June 30th, $271,693 of that budget has been expended, leaving us with 91% of that budget remaining for the year. This is a recap of the revenue by subcategory broken down with grant revenues. We have currently 98% of our grant revenues that is still has not been earned. Tariff revenues, we are right on target at 50% of the budget for tariff revenues being earned. Interest revenue, we're currently at 81% of that budget remaining, which is heavily dependent upon the market, as we have this budget is earmarked for interest earned on various accounts. Our rents and revenues budget is currently at 95% remaining to be earned. We do have budget amendments that will be presented at the next board meeting as we discuss Venture Global's lease was entered, so there will be some adjustments because the current budget did not reflect exactly when that lease would be entered and that revenue would be earned. So I will be presenting some budget amendments at the next meeting to reflect the recent activity we had with rents and leases. And miscellaneous revenues, we are currently at an 81% remaining, and a majority of those line items in that budget subcategory is related to our year-end pension GASB 68 entries. So most of that will be accounted for at year-end. And this graph is basically a display of what I just explained in the numbers. This presentation will be added to the website for the public as well. I want to make note of that. So just in case some people prefer graphs, we have provided that as well. My next slide reflects our tariff revenue. I did a reflection of second quarter year to date. So, and we have seen a 12% increase in our invoicing compared to 2020. January to June 30th of 2020, we had a total invoiced amount of $2,616,643. As of today, we have invoiced $2,942,944 of tariff revenue. So we have seen a 12% increase compared to 2020. My next slide breaks down the expenses by subcategories. Number of those categories, I won't go through each one of them. I will yield attention to two categories, which is currently within the 5% variance of what's remaining in our expenditures, and that includes the legal support budget. And we have presented an amendment for that. It's on the table today to discuss the legal support budget. So that has been addressed. That currently at June 30th has 24% remaining in the budget for the rest of the year. Our other subcategory that yields attention is the materials, parts, and supplies. We should be at a 50% mark on the budget. We're currently at 44% remaining. And we did an evaluation, and that has been heavily influenced by the cost of fuel for the boats due to the market. We're going to keep an eye on that. This is the first time it has fallen within that 5% variance. So as we monitor that, if budget amendments are needed for that expense category, they will be presented. And this is a graph of an illustration of the expenditure subcategories and the numbers we just discussed. That concludes my financial report. Subject to any questions, again, I would like to state that this presentation will be posted to the Port's website for everyone's viewing, along with the supporting details attached to them.
Thank you, Shimbrow. All right, is it Stacy or Barbara?
And advertisements, there are none. Item 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment, sorry about that, Donald. I didn't have anybody in queue, I'm sorry.
Again, Donald Valet. Unfortunately, we still getting the same reports, and I know that's all they can produce from what's there, but they're meaningless. Unless you can go down and do comparative analysis to what's left to be funded or collected within the year and then spent within the year as to what's left in the budget, you don't know. What you're looking at is basically an addition and subtraction in the numbers, which is meaningless from a management and tool standpoint that anybody, you, them, or the public can look at and determine where you are with this agency. As far as its revenue, we just saw we're doing 12% higher than what was done the previous year. What's in line with the budget? What was projected to be earned this year? And what were the expenses related to those revenues? Are we meeting our goals? I don't see anything. I guess, Madam Chair, you're chairman of that group. You may know. I don't. Have you seen any numbers, representation to that? I'm not allowed to talk to them, so I guess I got to direct it to you.
I can give you that answer for the next board meeting.
Okay, I'll wait till then.
Madam Chair.
Shimbrow.
Yes, the revenue budget is provided by detail for this current year. I also compared it to how we were doing last year, but we are, as I stated, on target with 50% of the tariff revenue remaining for collection. So we are on target, and that was reflected in the presentation with this year's current budget.
Show it again.
State your name and address.
Rob Porche, Belchase. My only issue with this is the expenditures are grouped together and it is not detailed. That would be my only comment with regards to this report. that is a vanilla report, high-level report. This has no details, no expenditures, no details as to where this money is going, who it was spent with. We went and brought this captain or this group out across the lake, how much was spent on that. All of those details should be on the website and detailed in some report that the public can look at. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about this high-level report that y'all are receiving at this meeting. We're talking about a report that has details in the expenditures that we have outgoing, incoming, all of the above, right? That's what I think Donald has said. That's what I have said. That's what we're wishing for, and we have yet to see. So with that being said, I'll yield.
Do I have a reply from the staff? Shimbrel, can you put on the agenda for next meeting with the chair that we'll talk about the details on how do we satisfy our audience here? We'll look at the state statute, something that we can talk about at the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, we'll add that to the agenda.
Anyone else?
I have comment.
And John?
Are we trying to move into a line item budget? Reconciliation? That's what this is.
What is,
Councilmember Bartholomew, can you speak into the microphone, please?
Are we moving in a line item reconciliation of the budget items? So if that's the case, we have to do the same thing with the council as well, on all expenditure, identify where the money is being spent and how much is left in each line item. And this would be a comprehensive analysis of the operational expenditures for the government entity.
thank you, Ms. Bartholomew. Mr. Russo?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that we do a line item budget for the council and government.
Don't get the report, though.
Well, I get the report.
Oh, I don't get it.
All you got to do is go online and look at it.
I'm talking about for the public.
Well, the public can go online and look at it as well, but
Well,
Anyone else? Stacy?
Item 4, bids and advertisements. There are none. Item 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions. We have one for Councilmember Roussel. A resolution of the Plaquemine Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemine Parish of the Plaquemine Port, Harbor, and Terminal District to amend and as amended readopt resolution number 21-158, authorizing and directing the executive director to engage the Miller Natakis Group and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Item 6. Item 6A, there is nothing. Item 6B, a resolution authorizing Menard J. Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemine Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, to execute an agreement with sustainability partners and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Newberry.
Yes, I'd like to offer next for a second. Second by Dr. Gui. Yeah, this resolution has been sitting on the table for a while, and what this is an agreement to extend the rail from the main line 8 miles. What this does is open up doors for new industry and existing industries that we have. This is our economic engine that we have for Plaquemine Parish. So if anybody has another solution to that, but the port is what we need to move forward with what the parish needs. I mean, if you remember 2 months ago, we borrowed $6 million to meet payroll. We're asking the public to increase taxes. So the port is an important step to how we need to move forward for the people of Plaquemine Parish. So I'm going to turn this over to the director, but also we have legal, Mr. Ken Rathborn. He's going to talk about the agreement, so that way the board understands a little bit how the agreement works. We also have Mr. Chris Ferrari here. He may want to piggyback on that. And Chris, if you can talk about the public partnership of this agreement versus bonding. And we also have Mr. Chris Fetters here to speak. So if any of the board members has any questions, these people are here to get those answers. Administration?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This has been before the board 2-3 months. We've had a number of meetings. Also have put a packet in front of the folks for hard copies of that, which I had sent electronically, one regarding not only SP, but the project itself. And as you stated, Chris Ferrari is here representing SP, as is Chris Fetters is also representing the DEVCO. We're prepared to answer any questions. This is a way that the port can move forward with the strategic plan of extending the mainline rail down to the port campus, and also serving a number of already customers along the way. I know NOLA Oil has expressed a very large desire to bring rail to their operation. I also got an email from Ramesh Raman with IGP Methanol stating, thank you for reaching out today regarding your plan to consider rail access to the port. We will also be very interested in the rail option. While much of our production is geared toward the export market, we have many of our buyers who distribute along Mississippi River, and rail access offers a valuable logistics alternative to barge deliveries for smaller and mid-sized volumes. We are also working with CHS on a grant which will expand their services, their docks, but what they really want is a more robust rail to get their product to market, and I think Mr. Matthews will be talking about that later on. But we're here to answer questions. The port is not able financially to fund this on their own. Sustainability Partners works exclusively with public entities when they set up their programs. And I will, as I say, I have the two Chris's standing by to answer any specific questions.
Yes, I'd like to start out with the agreement. Can you kind of explain to the board and to the public on how the agreement works with the public-private partnership, Ken?
I can give a large view, and then I'll have Chris Ferrari back it up. Okay. But in essence, Sustainability Partners has $50 million set aside for this project. $8 million of that 50 is designated for what we call the soft costs. That's to do the permitting, the feasibility studies, the sustainability studies that we will be looking at right-of-ways, along with the state government Department of Transportation that would be partnering with us to ensure, because there are a lot of good questions that people have come up with, particularly safety, flyovers, and we take all of that into those feasibility studies. We have designated 4 what we call tranches where we will draw money of that $8 million. Prior to that draw, the SP, their representative, Chris Fetters, will come before the board and state, this is what we're going to be doing this first 90 days. I also have in the packet that I gave y'all scope of work that will be reviewing with the board, ascertaining what they might want to add to that or detract from it. And then the notice to proceed is signed off. They will draw that money. They have set up a portal where I guess anyone can go in and look at how the money is being spent after the bills are paid. So it's showing full transparency, which is the only way that SP said that they will operate. They want everyone to know exactly how the money is being spent. At the end of that 90 days, then there is a reckoning, so to speak, where they'll have to come back for the board. They'll have to state what their tasks were for that 90 days. and they have to, give y'all a report card on what was done. If that's satisfactory, then, again, they will be explaining what is proposed for the next 90 days. And if that's satisfactory, then, once again, the board signs off on the notice to proceed. So we'll go through the whole thing until we actually go into the construction. But that is, that first part is probably 18 months. And again, every step along the way has to have board approval, so y'all can stop this at any time. Then during the construction phase, and then once it go after construction, then it will go into a usage, full usage. So if I may, Chris Ferrari, you would like to step forward and be able to answer any questions that I addressed or did not address or incorrectly addressed.
Mr. Ferrari, just state who you just state who you represent and where you're from.
Chris Ferrari, 3091 Kleiner Avenue, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, representing SP. Just to kind of take a step back, our role in all of this is to be the enabler of capital for the public body. So just like any, in a public-private partnership agreement, you usually have the private development entity is bringing the capital and having majority of the structure in the project facilitated through them under some kind of lease agreement with the public body. Where we differ is we partnership ourselves with the public entity, not directly with the private entity. So whereas Mr. Fetter's company, LA23 DevCo, is the elected developer of the project, our customer is the Port Authority itself and the commission itself. With them and you guys, LA23 would then enter into a contract as a service provider like any other vendor or professional consultant under a project structure. And so we believe in separating the two, because in the event that there's unsatisfactory with the private entity itself as the developer or the operator, the public body doesn't have to divorce itself from the capital source and the enabler of the investment to furthermore the project or to make corrective actions or invest more dollars, et cetera. So it gives the public body, more flexibility in the long term for large dated projects that have multiple phases and multiple nuances of investments that's going to go up and down over time, because it's hard to predict what's going to happen, so many years out in advance, and conditions change, things are discovered. So, we established the company in a sense to be able to provide that ultimate flexibility and understanding that with critical infrastructure, we want to look at the investment for 20, 30, 40, ideally 50, 60, even 75 years. And if we're making the bet that if we can be a good partner on an investment side with the public body for essential infrastructure that ultimately provides, greater benefit for all the constituents here, which we believe this project does in the long run, then, we're going to, put forward our contract, which has the ability to adjust, readjust, consider special circumstances. COVID-22 happens and there's a hit in revenue that, for some reason needs to be considered with the payments of usage of our investment with the project. We like to sit down and talk about that versus push into default scenarios, similar to like a bond would with obligatory liabilities. It's more of a sit-down conversation. How do we work through it together? We want to be invested in essential infrastructure, meaning it's going to be there for a long time. And we understand that provides opportunity for recovery of that service, which then provides opportunity in the long run recovery of any investments that we have. So, it's a long-winded to say we want to be with the public body. We only do work with public bodies, and we want to be in it for a long-term relationship, and we've structured our contract specifically to allow the flexibility to work through nuances over time, to continue to work together and then design solutions that ultimately, yield successful projects. That's kind of the impetus of the company. The specific reasons why, we have a difference between bond, debt, and our program is that we're all equity, meaning that we can issue bonds if that's what y'all really want. I always forget to say that, but we can facilitate that as an option, but none of our customers ultimately go down that road because when they see the equity play, they realize it's usually a better long-term, investment solution for the projects. But with bonds, it's a debt obligation, something you have to pay. It's a restricted amount of money. And if for some reason you have a need for additional funds, you have to go back and request for additional bonding or raise taxes or come up with the money from somewhere else. With equity, there's flexibility to go back to the pockets and say, hey, we discovered X, it's going to cost an additional $2 million, or we really want that flyover, it's going to cost an additional $3 million. How can we make that work with the project? We can use additional capital of equity to inject into the project to facilitate that request or that need. So there's a flexibility of capital deployment. That's the difference between equity and debt or a bond. And then also with bonds, since it is a debt, it's an on-book liability for the government itself, whereas we don't issue any kind of UCC liens with our money. Again, it's all equity, so it to some degree is at-risk capital. And with that, it provides us the ability to stay in an operations budget ledger and off balance sheet, which then doesn't go against any future bond ability for the government body to go borrow funds later. So if you think of it like two different columns, you have debt and an equity, equity cash. We sit in a non, liable kind of ledger for the public body. That's probably the biggest difference between bond and equity is just that off-balance sheet flexibility of deployment. Capital is needed if additional capital is available, if additional capital is needed for some circumstance. It's all done off of that one, I think it's 10 pages if you include the signature pages contract. Our investors and people ultimately who put the hard cash into these projects are often the same people and institutions that buy bonds. And so the sophistication of the investors, they also like public bodies and they want to put money direct into public bodies. And we facilitate a way they can put it direct into assets for those public bodies versus going through clearinghouses and Wall Street and investment bankers. And they trust us as the representative of their dollars that we've established hopefully healthy partnerships with our customers and that we're doing right by them and that we're overseeing that the assets that are being deployed are done so appropriately and of quality that will last a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Farrar. If you can stay there for a second. Is there any questions from the board? Mr. Russo?
Yes. So what I understand from your presentation is that you put up the money, and is it fair to say that every dollar you put up has to be paid back?
The intent is that the money is deployed as long as possible because the investors they're chasing a yield, and because it's equity, it's basically return on equity versus return on debt with an interest rate. Our interest rate is effectively zero, and we establish through risk association of the project, and as you can see with the schedule of payments that we're projecting the board to make over time, as the project becomes more established and built out, and carriers get signed on, contracts get signed on, infrastructure's in place, the amount of dollars required to continue the investment gets larger. It actually de-risks the project. And so by the de-risking the project, the yield expectation gets lower and lower and lower. So right now, in the soft costs and the study phase, the risk is the highest. So it's going to garner the highest yield expectation from people putting dollars in. And I think the effective target yield is from year one is 8.1%, I believe. And so what we usually do And this is a unique case because it's intellectual property, and the asset is the actual documents and research and studies itself. And so it's a little unique, so it's a more stable payment for a specific, tangible asset that is of intellectual property. More often the case are investments go into hard assets, where it be pipe, maybe the easiest way to think about it is, let's say there's a motor on a sewer lift station or a pump house or something. And the motor costs $500,000 or $1 million. Let's use $1 million for simple math. And we get with engineers, get with y'all, hey, this is the motor you want. And that motor is good for, engineers tell us, that is a 20-year motor. And that's its deemed useful life of that asset. Right? So we call it a remaining useful life is the terms we use. And that has a value in itself. So then we say that, okay, we got 20 years to place capital into that thing. Now, at the end of that 20 years, well, the useful life value of that could be appraised at $1. And so at the end of that useful life, let's say you wanted to own it and buy it back, in theory, the value of that thing could be $1, it could be transacted back to the public body or the customer for that $1. So it's a usage of the asset, capital into that asset. The return is a yield, not a interest rate on debt. And the equity remains with that asset, hopefully, for its duration of useful life. And that could be, depending on what it is, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Rail theoretically could be a long time if maintained properly, which we allocate funds for as well. And the longer the duration, the lower the monthly cost over time.
So the answer to my question is what? Every dollar that you invest, do you expect to get back?
Not necessarily.
So you take risk.
You take risks.
Your company takes risk.
That's what equity is. Equity is a higher risk position in investment than debt, because debt ties back to on-balance sheet liability, which then can go into default. So, all right.
So anywhere, first of all, in this document, I don't see railroad written anywhere.
Well, the document is useful for any asset, so it's a universal agreement. The addendum that's associated with MUSA would be the thing associated with the professional services, which is the $8 million for the railroad. So when we get to the point where we're going to write an addendum for the railroad, that addendum will be specific to the railroad cost and all the associated components and services for that effort. Right now, the only effort is for the $8 million of soft costs and investigation services, of which, in an effort to help mitigate the risk for ourselves and for you guys, we recommended breaking that down into 4 tranches. That way it can be very set and strict milestones of performances and deliverables from the private sector to the port board that can be reviewed and measured against success of what was planned so that we can continue to the next step. So if it's not meeting a satisfactory level of delivery, then it can be stopped.
However, we still owe you that $8 million.
No, you only owe the amount deployed. So that's why we broke it down.
I understand, but I mean, I'm trying to get to the bottom line in this understanding. And, the first $8 million, I saw here, it goes intellectual properties.
It's intellectual property.
Right, and so when you say you take risk, if we get down, it said like for the first 3 months, we spend $3 million. That's what the schedule is?
3.2.
3.2 million in the first 3 months, $1 million a month. If we get to the end of the 3 months and we decide to pull the plug, and we don't know anything, or we already put the $8 million up that you loan to us that we give to somebody else? Or give to us. You say you don't loan it to us, but whatever you do with it, we spend it, we're obligated for it.
The expectation is that you would make the payments, which I believe is scheduled at $26,000. It's roughly $26,000 a month for that 3.25 till serviced. The SPV would own the asset of that IP. So if you forfeited of payments, then there would be no ownership of that IP for the port or the commission itself. So any efforts or engineering or studies, et cetera, put forth, you would have no copyright or.
So you would own it, so you could take your set of plans and go back to Baton Rouge and we wouldn't owe you anything?
Not necessarily.
That's what I'm trying to find out. You know, this has been kicked around for a long time. And I understand that it's an innovative way of getting money and keeping it off the books.
I can get.
But what I don't understand is, you know, the answers that I don't get. For instance, you know, we get a folder that's 10 minutes ago before the meeting. As usual, I don't have time in 10 minutes to go through the entire folder. But I have gone through, you know, that one of the documents that provide a short version of the agreement between sustainability partners and PPP that outlines the liability assumed by PPP, interest rates and so forth. And then it says, see attached summary MUSA breaking down the terms into a shorter 2-page document. I go to that document, and it doesn't answer the question. Now, these were questions that were developed by a local businessman that went and met with the director and posed these questions to them. And so they're not questions that came from me, or I don't know who else they came from, but I understand it came from one of the local business people. The other factor in this is that we get this at the last minute, and it's still not clear to me. We had these meetings in my office with you, and we got a long explanation, and we talk a lot about buzzwords, but we don't get down to the real facts of what happens. Like I ask you if we have to pay the dollars back, you say no. The first $8 million, I ask you, that's intellectual property. That goes to somebody in the middle. We got a middleman, LA 23, correct?
No, there's no middleman. Our contract is directly with the port itself.
So does LA 23 have to enter into a contract with the board?
They enter into a contract with the special purpose vehicle, which is the entity in which the assets themselves are owned and the capital is placed.
So, well, that stops me there then. You're going to own asset, or this entity that you create is going to own the asset. And they do a contract with that entity. And the funding comes from you to that entity for that contract that is executed with LA 23 to spend. Correct?
Under the oversight of the port authority themselves.
And so I'm asking, the question is that when, at the end of the 90 days and the $3 million is spent, and the plug could be pulled, because that's a liability to somebody. And I'm trying to find out who the liability sits with in that situation.
If I can have a moment, I can make a call to our council. I'm not an attorney, so I don't.
I understand, and I'm not an attorney either. I'm just doing common sense here. And at the 10 minutes before the meeting, you know, we get this package, and I asked the chairman to defer this so we can get an understanding, because we've been through so many meetings and it still is not clear in my mind. And then when I ask you a question like this, you got to call somebody else.
So
So
my understanding, I'll tell you my understanding. And it's my understanding because it sits with me, and if I would be allowed to make a call, I could probably get it clarified.
I understand, but let me say, to save everybody a lot of time, I think that the dinner the other night got you the votes, and I'm probably wasting a lot of people's time here.
What dinner? I was not.
You might have not been there, but there was a dinner held, and I understand that the votes were there to get this thing done. And, I mean, you know, it's amazing what a dinner can do, but without beating this horse anymore, and if the votes are there, then we can move forward with it, but
I would like to express my opinion of the answer you're asking. So, again, I say it's my opinion, and we can look at the detail. But in the event of what you're saying, of which it is they rejected the 3.25 on the initial phase, since the asset is of intellectual property and it sits in that SPV and we paid for it, and y'all elect to turn it down, then yes, that would be our risk, and we would own that asset, which is intellectual property, meaning that if the board wanted to pursue a project in the future and needed the documents or the effort that was used during this first phase later, you'd have to redo it with a new vendor and service provider and cost, or can come back to us and purchase that effort.
That brings me up to a great point. And it's a segue into the letter that you sent, or somebody sent, that tells me that we're also going to do Peters Road alignment and mainline rail extension in the project, correct?
That's our understanding.
Okay, so let me move on to that. The Peters Road extension has been engineered and designed, and on the Jefferson Parish side is ready to go out for bid. So if y'all are going to come in and redesign and re-engineer Peters Road, where are you going to pick up and who are you going to get the intellectual property from Bergeron Peters, who did all of this work? Are y'all going to buy it from them?
Repeat your question? Sorry to make you do that.
This project has Peters Road extension in it as well. The Peters Road extension project has been around for years, and it's been slow going with DOTD. DOTD now is prepared on the Jefferson Parish side by puller parts to move forward with a box culvert and ready to bid that. First part of the project is already been built. So if y'all are going to come in here and you're talking about intellectual property and that we were going to come in and we'd have to pick it up and somebody would own it and this entity that's created would own it, I want to know how Peters Road fits in with the intellectual property that Bergeron Peter has already done over the years and been paid for by the state. Where do you pick it up, and do you pay them for their intellectual property, or do you redesign and re-engineer all of the efforts that they've done for the extension of Peters Road onto the drainage canal and so forth?
If Mr. Roussel, may I interject, please? First of all, this is not about Peters Road. That letter that you have says that they would engage if they were asked. We do not have to go with SP with Peters Road. This is for the initial $8 million. All right. Now, to correct something, if we do draw that $3.25 million, and then the board says after that, after the first 90 days, they say we're not moving forward, the port does have to pay that back. And we have the funds to pay that. Yes, we have to pay that back.
Okay.
Okay?
So I'm going to yield here in a minute. The problem that I have is that, we're talking about a rail. And if this rail is successful, we're going to funnel all this rail through Gretna. And Gretna is going to be coming out unglued at the seams because we're funneling all of this train through Gretna. And we've talked about rerouting it through Peters Road and all. And I know this proposal says, we're going to build that too?
No, if you reread that letter, it was asked in the meeting that we had if would they consider doing the whole project. And that is a letter from Tom Kane that says that they would greatly assist. What he's saying is, yes, we would like to do the whole project. But right now we're talking about phase one, which is that intellectual property, the $8 million.
Well, thank you for offering for me to read this, because I'm going to read it to you, so you can see.
No, I can clarify.
No, let me read the letter, because he asked me to read the letter. The letter says, the port and project team has broken the project into phases. The first phase is to complete any necessary studies, engineering, and permitting for the mainline extension to the port campus. As part of this phase, the required capacity studies and initial engineering for the Peters Road realignment is to be completed. That's what this letter says. Now, like I said, I don't want to waste everybody's time here, but this is another part of misinformation that you just said is not part of the first phase when it says it right here.
To clarify, and I apologize to interject, our understanding is we want to continue the investment along for Peters Road and the realignment and the bridge itself. Our understanding and our intent is that this mainline extension, the $8 million of initial soft cost engineering studies, the mainline extension of the rail itself, the studies and the engineering for Peters Road, whether it be new or purchased from somebody who's already done it. We can purchase current plans as we have the ability to do that. if they're satisfactory and appropriate for the project. And then also the funding for the road, the bridge, and the rail realignment of Peters Road, all is one project to us. Now, y'all can elect on how much we participate in that overall project, but we've furnished a letter to express our willingness and desire to invest and be a part of the overall project, which includes Peters Road. To the point of the study of, what did you call it? What was the study that has to be done in the first 90 days?
You want me to read it again?
Just it was the.
Peters Road
capacity study.
realignment is to be
Capacity
completed.
study. So for the capacity study, yes, our expectation is that LA 23, DevCo, will deliver an initial capacity study that proves to us that the need for that realignment is there and the demand is there. So we can begin to, at this stage, look at investment, opportunities and structure to facilitate that project or that phase of the project later. I want to know that early
Right.
before we
So,
get.
so let me ask you this. So you're going to go to the Department of Transportation and Development Files, who paid for all of this work to be done, and cull that out, and you're going to determine that, or is LA 23 going to go make copies of it and cull it out and sell it back to us?
Sell it back if it's already property of the state. I'm not sure if I follow you.
My frustration is that Peters Road project has been studied, been cleared environmentally, has been designed, and is under construction. As soon as the final right-of-ways are acquired, we have 2 more purchases on the Plaquemine side. The Jefferson Parish side is complete. And then we're trying to wrap all of this into this deal. And then we start talking about, well, we'll go buy their intellectual property. Are we going to spend $8 million here to create new intellectual property? You see, this has not been thought out.
No, sir,
It's
you're
not
getting
been
off
vetted.
topic.
Yeah,
You're getting off topic. It says the port and project team has broken the project into phases. The first phase is, which we're talking about right now, is to complete any necessary studies, engineering, permitting for the main line extension to the port campus. As part of this phase, the required capacity studies and initial engineering for the Peters Road realignment is to be completed, and that will be updated. Okay? We're not going to start from zero. We'll start from that, but that's going to be updated. But what we're talking about now is the $8 million for phase 1 to do these studies. And I think you're trying to cloud it with talking about Peters Road. They would love to do Peters Road, all right, but we're not talking about Peters Road right now. This letter is a result of the board members that were in that meeting stating, would sustainability partners consider the whole project? And he had to go back and talk to Mr. Kane about that. All right, but what we're talking about right now and what we're voting on upon right now is a notice to proceed for this phase 1 and to proceed with the necessary studies, engineering, permitting for the mainline extension to the port campus.
And the second sentence that you're failing to include as part of this phase, the required capacity studies and initial engineering for the Peters Road realignment is to be completed. And like I said, I'm wasting my time here, and, if this body wants to go ahead and put $8 million in the slot and go that direction, so be it. I can't be part of it. I'll be voting against it for that reason, and I didn't really get into the heart of the issue. This is something that was handed to me just a few minutes ago, and I've spent too much time on it already. But if I got into the rest of the document, it would be more revealing to the public to understand how not to do it this way.
Mr. Koknovich?
Thank you, Chris.
So let's say you get this first phase, then the second phase comes. Who owns the rail? SP?
We would own the rail. We own the asset.
Yeah.
You pay taxes on the rail? All taxes?
There's ad valorem, yeah, that's what it is,
Yes.
ad valorem taxes and, the taxes.
They own it, they pay taxes, they maintain it.
Up to $500,000. Up to.
And that
They're not
formula will be
paying.
created in our fees?
I think what was it?
We pay it out our fees.
The taxes? Why would you pay the fees out of the taxes? Why would you?
No,
pay the
they
taxes out
would
of-
receive a standard ad valorem tax from the assessor's office based on the calculations on the assessor's website for the entire $50 million of rail. It comes up to be about up to $525,000 a year to the taxing bodies.
Yeah, that's not, those are not fees that y'all would pay. I don't understand how that would even work.
So it comes out of your profit?
So SP only makes, we don't make profit off, we don't have any upcharge on professional fees or operations or cost of goods or cost of capital. SP is an asset manager in which we, the SP revenue comes from 80 basis points of the dollars invested. So it's a flat fee no matter what. So if there's a study for an engineer to go out and do a big survey and it costs $100,000, it's a strict pass-through with no markup, by us to the SPV.
Well, and you build the rail, and let's say nobody comes to use the rail to pay for it. Then who pays for it?
Well, if nobody uses it,
We're in charge, we're in charge of who gets to use it. The port is, because we're paying the usage fee. They own it, but we're paying the usage fee. We determine who was able to use the rail.
Let's say nobody comes to use it, where are we getting the money to pay for it?
Mark, to your question.
I've already got plenty of people coming to me waiting for that rail. Plenty.
You got
And based on
contracts
our
on it?
meeting that we had yesterday with those stakeholders, they have plenty of people that will be coming to use that rail as well.
And they sign their name on the dotted lines?
I've got CHS doing a grant with us right now. You heard the letter that I got from IGP. That's already here. And Christian Amity has stated emphatically that he needs the rail. Okay, so
That ain't what he told me.
Right. Let's.
Well, let me address your question. It's a good question. Our model, we tie the payments for usage. We are considered a utility, so we have to have a variable usage rate. And so if nobody uses it, that means there's no payment on it.
But somebody's got to pay back the 58 million.
If it's not in use, let's get an example. So the power company for this facility, if nobody comes and uses this facility and power is not used, you're not going to get a bill for your lights because the lights aren't on. It's the same concept.
If I don't use the electricity at my house, I get a bill. If I don't use the water at my house, I get a bill. So somebody's gonna pay for it.
You get a bill for not using your water?
If I don't use any water that month, I get a minimum usage bill from the parish.
So there is the ability to regulate availability payments, right? So it becomes a discussion on cost of capital. And so if you negotiate in a minimum use or an availability payment of that asset, then the yield target or the cost of capital or interest rate, however you want to define it, would lower because there is some minimum payment owed. If it is desired that a zero payment is owed, well, then the cost of that investment and those target yields go up because the risk is higher. So there's flexibility in the contract for those things to be negotiated, and those are usually done on a per addendum basis, per project basis.
Because I brought that question up before, and it was always told to me that we could use the tariffs to pay for the rail, which I don't think.
that is not true.
Well, yeah, it was.
We can use the tariffs after it's been constructed.
That's what I asked, after it was constructed.
After it's
If nobody
constructed,
came to use it, who would have to pay for it? And I was told we used the tariffs to pay for it.
after it is constructed, we can use tariffs to pay our fee. Prior to that, we cannot use tariffs. It comes out of our budget, and we have the money to pay for it.
And who said we,
Let me answer that. So when we talk about using the tariffs to pay for the use of the rail, what we're talking about is the anticipation, obviously, that we would have rail cargo, whether that is bulk cargo that uses X amounts of rail cars, or whether that is containers. Within our tariffs right now, we have rates for rail cars that we can charge. So whatever, based on negotiations of moving cargo through that rail, that organization, that company would pay the tariff rate for moving that cargo onto the docks and through the rail, and there's a charge. As a result, then those payments, the additional incremental payments that we're not getting right now on tariffs, will be used to pay SP for that yield. And the hope and anticipation is that we can pay that and still have a surplus of new funds that we can use for other items outside of this SP yield. So when we say, yes, we can use tariff revenues, we're talking about additional revenues due to berths, due to total tonnage on the vessels, total tonnage at the facilities, and the rail cars moving through our jurisdiction.
And the tariff says we could use it to pay for rail.
Legally, yes, we can, because it's a service that the port would be providing to its customers. That is the purpose of the tariff, sir.
It's similar to what you noted, Mr. Malkovich. You said
Microphone.
it's similar to what you noted. Even though you're not using your utility, you still get a bill, a flat bill, whatever it is. Same too legally with regards to tariffs being assessed, even if no one's using it, because it's available as a service if someone chooses to use it at that time. That's a benefit to the ships.
Because I never read where, I read where police, fire, ambulance, we could use flood control on the property, we could do ferries, but I never seen nowhere where it said rail in the tariff.
In the tariffs, they actually have the rates for rail movements.
Yeah, I mean, our overall position is to enable the port of their vision, the vision being the port as container terminal itself and the needed infrastructure to be able to open the port. You know, so it matters, but it doesn't matter in a sense that if the vision changes or the need changes, you know, what we do is we bring the investment that can enable that change or that vision, whatever the project is. So if there's other needs or there's something else that needs to be addressed, you know, we're open to facilitate, hopefully, investment solutions that could be satisfactory.
Mr. LaFrance?
Yes. When will all your investment be paid back?
It changes with the useful life of the asset itself. It could go on as long as you want. You can continue the contract for 100, 200 years. And y'all might say, we don't want to be in the business of owning rail and maintaining it. We want to keep it with this private entity. Since we are a utility, you can terminate the agreement at any time and buy us out by using traditional bonds or other, you know, monies available to you. We will even issue those bonds if you want. So as far as being paid back, it's either at an elected termination and valuation of that termination of the asset, because it could, in theory, be less than what we put in, or it is specific to the useful life of the asset itself, which I think we projected the rail to be, was it 50 years? 50 years? And at that point, again, the service continues until elected to be terminated. So if you wanted to terminate at 50 years and no, you know, reinvestment or replacement, or there's no additional investments put into the asset along that 50-year period of time, then in theory, you can go get a valuation, appraisal of the rail, and it could be deemed $1, and you can buy it for $1. So, but it would have to be, it only ends upon an elected termination from the customer, and then an appraiser is sent out that all parties agree is sufficient and satisfactory. They give a value of remaining useful life, and that is the value in which you would buy it back.
Sandy, what percentage of the profits will the people from Plaquemine Parish receive from this project?
The parish as a community is going to receive jobs from it. It's going to be a way that we'll have income streams that we can pay for things that the community needs, but so does the port. In that case, as an example, we could fund the Peters Road project. We could fund the bridges. So the parish is going to enjoy the port being here by virtue it's got jobs here, we're diversifying our economy, and we can also be paying for community projects that are good for the port, but also good for the parish. But let me say that the port does not receive any money from taxes.
You know,
from the
ladies and
parish.
gentlemen, they're always using this for an excuse that the people from the parish is always going to receive jobs. Now, we know the majority of the good paying jobs in this parish, it's not the people that live in this parish. They're burning up the road in Belle Chase at 5:30 in the morning to come in this parish and get these, especially refinery jobs, good jobs that's paying $80,000 to $100,000 plus. The local people is not getting these jobs. So they use this, they say, well, we're going to benefit from jobs. Don't bet your life on it. Then they're going to say you benefit from taxes. A lot of the taxes that the parish that we should receive, we don't receive through ITEP because the state give tax exempt and everything else. So even back in the 60s, they was using that for an excuse. In the 60s, that we're going to benefit from jobs. 70s, we're going to benefit from the jobs. 80s, 90s. Now in the 2000s, we're going to benefit from jobs. Again, they burning up the road coming in to the parish to come to get the jobs in Belle Chase. And at 3:30, they burning up the roads getting out of here. You can't get through Belle Chase right now. That's another subject. But again, the local people is not getting the jobs. I'm sorry, Sandy. The local people are not getting the jobs. Unless y'all want to put something in writing that the people from the parish that we're going to receive at least 80% of the jobs.
Our guidance to those folks that are signing up for on the website, that it is a Plaquemines first, regional first priority. Okay, now, this is something that we can be discussing in the future of what the port desires on that. All right, but right now, that's not what we're talking about. Right now, what we're talking about is this phase one, this $8 million, to do what we have to do, all the studies, the engineering, and the permitting to get this mainline extension done. We have plenty of time to start talking about jobs. And I agree with you. Don't think I'm arguing with you. I agree with you.
We ain't going to argue. We're going to discuss it. You have met with the pilots, the DOTD, port ship, warehouses, cargo, CH. You done met with all these people. Mm-hmm. How many communities that's going to be affected by this railroad have you met with?
We have to meet with these communities once we start moving forward. We have to. That's part of your feasibility study. Public opinion, public intake. We have to. That's part of it. So we will be meeting with them.
Mr. LaFrance, if I may.
The Port of New Orleans and St. Bernard Port had met with their community that just started. They met with their community 3 times already. 3 times. And we've been dealing with this for years, and yet we haven't reached out to our communities and met with our communities.
Sir, that's why we started the procurement process. You guys have already set the policies. The next step is to have a small business community program. That is the next step in our procurement process. We first did the policies. Now the next step is marketing to our small businesses in the community and all small businesses in the community.
Since you want to answer, Mr. Matthew, tell me what percentage of the profit will the people from Plaquemine Parish going to receive?
Profit of what, sir?
Profit. You know what profit
Well,
is.
it's profit. If you're talking about profit in the sense of what is going to come to the people of Plaquemines from taxes, we showed that a month ago when we had this conversation. where one, this project at $50 million is going to bring up to $500,000 annually in ad valorem taxes. As a result of their development, we now know that as of May 6th, APM Terminals has announced that they are interested in our project, and they're working towards a final decision and commitment to come to our port. That container terminal project, with all its phases and full build-out, will be a $1.1 billion development. As a result, that could be up to $11 million of ad valorem taxes annually for that development. Not to mention the construction jobs, you have the permanent jobs. As we know from studies upon studies in the maritime community, for every one job that is created in the port, you have 3 indirect jobs. And the average salary in port jobs are between $70,000 to $80,000 a year. And it's very important because of where we're located here in Plaquemines, we have to develop our own workforce because it makes no sense to get people out of the parish and bring them in. But first, we need to make sure that the people of this parish have opportunities. And that includes the small businesses that would service, one, the container terminal development, would service additional developments by CHS, would provide services to NOLA Oil, possibly IGP, and all the other potential developments because of the rail, including warehouses and distribution centers. So absolutely, we agree with you that we need to make sure that through our small business community outreach program, through our procurement team, that we make those announcements, provide that information, and that all these businesses that come here that we work with and we partner, we make sure that one, they're hiring local in Plaquemines, and number two, they're hiring small businesses in Plaquemines. And I mean all small businesses, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged businesses, so that our people in Plaquemines can prosper.
Can we see that in writing? Can we have it in writing? Because we can make all kind of promises, but until I see it happen, talk is cheap.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have,
I'd like to mention that Mr. Blink would like to have it deferred.
well taken, but I'm not going to do that. So any public comment?
All right, Rob Fortier, Belchase. Well, in this discussion that we were having just now, I come up with about 7 different questions that I have. Amongst all of the smoke and mirrors that's been thrown out there and things that have been said that contradict what has been said 2 or 3 seconds ago. Number one, we don't even have the administration of our port living in Plaquemine Parish. So we did not even go and hire our own port administration out of Plaquemine Parish. So there's the writing on the wall, folks. There's the writing on the wall. There's nothing gonna be happening new about this project or any other project that happens with regards to the port. I'm gonna start from the bottom up because I guess all projects have schedules, right? All projects have schedules, including this container terminal, including the oil terminal, including this other pies in the skies that have been spoken about. And if all of these projects take longer than the development of 8 miles of railroad, I'd like to see those schedules. I'd like to see those construction schedules because I don't believe them. Because I believe that if you started digging 1 shovel of dirt in this parish, developing 1 project that has not happened, and by the way, one of the projects were coming whether or not this port or the train or anything else was developed. They were coming. They had already come to the commission and was coming to Plaquemine Parish was not brought in by this group, not brought in by anything but the guys that sit on this board or the guys that did sit on the board at one particular point in time, right? All right, so with that being said, schedule, right? Schedule. Why can't this be done during the construction of the most viable project that's going to utilize this train track? Number two, when this all started, $750,000. If I'm not mistaken, it was a month ago, right here in this building, I stated that there would be a $750,000 ticket price tag right now, but there would be change orders before this thing ever got off the ground. Well, obviously, there's been one, a $500,000 change order, because it's gone from 750 to 800, or a $50,000 change order. All right, so with that being said, now we've got already a change order in this project. All right, another one. What asset are the citizens of this parish going to own out of this project? What asset? We are not going to own anything. There is not one piece of this pie that the people of Plaquemine Parish is going to own. None of it. How much is the user fee? You talk about a user fee that we're going to have to pay. How much is that fee? I mean, that hadn't come out. We don't know that. That's this another pie in the sky that somebody's going to dream up and say, hey, look, we need to get this fee. What would the buyout cost? Okay, Belchase Bridge is going to cost us $700 or $900 million, right, if we buy it out. So what's the buyout of this project if we decide to buy it out before it's completed, right, or even after it's completed? Is all of this verbiage in this contract that we've been discussing, that Sandy has stated, that his deputy director has stated over here? 10 pages. Y'all spoken way more than 10 pages here. All right? And I mean, the port will never own this rail.
You have 10 seconds, Mr. Fauché.
Why, I got 3 seconds more because you interrupted me. So why is Sustainability Partners in this picture? Why aren't we funding this ourselves, right? So with that being said, I'll yield the other second. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fauché. I call the question.
No, there's other people who want to speak. Excuse me.
Madam Chair.
Gotcha. Yes, Mr. Valet.
Donald Valle. Unfortunately, y'all got a tough task. I know everybody wants the port to succeed, do well, and the parish to accelerate what we want to do with the river. The river is our greatest asset. We've lost the oil and gas, and we're dependent upon this for our future. What we need to do is relook at what we're doing. We're still dealing with an old plan that was in place before Sandy got here, before Paul got here. They haven't looked at any alternatives. We stick to the same old thing and do the same old thing every day. And all I'm hearing, we're Sustainable Partners, which is a very good company. It's just another financing tool. I was in the business 20 years. I've been on different boards. I've done P3s for residential housing and multifamily housing. We don't need to do that. They are bad deals. It's just another means of financing a project. You all haven't arrived at the total picture yet. I appreciate all the things that have been done. You're not anywhere near ready to develop a port, buying holes in the ground at exorbitant amounts of money, spending more money for rail service, talking to people about the ports. We do need to talk. We do need to have more meetings. We do need to advertise. We didn't go out for a public bid and ask for developers to come in and look at our port and what developers we'd look at. We didn't go out in public bids and ask us for financing tools to anybody else, what else is available. Sustainable Partners is not the only game in town. Bonds are there. We have abilities to issue bonds for this public entity, just like you're doing for NOLA. But all of a sudden now, we're going to rush to this. And gentlemen, Bo, I know you were chairman of the board for a long time. I know you know it very well. And it's one of your babies, and same way with you. Good. I've watched y'all. Y'all are very smart men. But I got to tell you, you need to deliberate a little bit more. You need to do a little bit more homework, and you need to have some more roundtable discussions out there. What is needed to make this port work with public and other parties besides the staff that's doing it? Because frankly, you all lost faith in the staff, without question. I mean, I sit here and listen to this. The public has lost faith. There's contradictions between the port and what you all do here. It's a shame. But you know, there's people who want to make this thing work for the parish. I watched Orleans Parish, St. Bernard, and things go up and down this river. When I took over Bowling Marine years ago, I flew from Loop to Baton Rouge and identified every bit of business that came in this river. I looked at it 3 deep, who controlled it, where it went, and why it came here. And for the most part, nobody wanted to come here because they felt that everybody was going to take a piece of them when they got into this river. And the same thing's happening right here. Somebody's coming in and taking a piece of this port. This is your port. And you all need to direct and tell the staff what to do, when to do it, and let's move on. But if the public needs to be involved, you need to have more people, more knowledgeable people out there to get involved in this thing. What else the competition is, what else financing is, and what else we can bring to it. Look, I've known Mertz for a long time. They're good operators. We need a terminal. But we're not anywhere ready for a terminal. We need a terminal people to put up the money, sign contracts, and buy land. Then maybe we can talk about the rail. But it all needs to be done simultaneously with a master plan. I could go on for 2 days with this, but I'm just going to stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Valet. Next. Mr. Henry, state your name and address.
Arthur Henry, Bell Chase. Listen, I can't ask the colonel a question, but I can ask the council. The realignment of the railroad, since that's what sustainability is about, the realignment of the railroad on the Plaquemine side, could anybody tell me the route that railroad is taking? The public was never shown where that route is. That's the first thing. I'm asking that question. Do anybody on the council know the route of that railroad?
We do have a timeline, Mr. Henry, and actually, if Mr. Fetters wants to come up here and answer that, he can. I think he has a copy, or do we have a copy of that?
I can tell you that the mainline extension will be routed after the feasibility study is done, which will say where is the best way for the right-of-ways. So that is part of the study.
The public will be involved, Mr. Henry.
And the public will be involved, very much.
Well, Ms. Newberry.
Mr. Rousseau?
Currently, if you heard what was said earlier, this is the first phase. The first phase is the existing extension of the route to a piece of property that we don't own yet. And so if that's successful, the next phase will have to be finding money to reroute it to a different direction. But until then, it'll go through Bell Chase and Gretna.
Okay, I want to go on record publicly. I'm totally against this railroad if it gotta go through the black community of Oakville. I've been on this deal for a long time, and I'm saying publicly, I'm against this deal if they gotta do that. I'm against the deal going through Peters Road to keep me harboring us up for all kinds of consequences. But they want to put it out of the great neighborhood in Gretna, bring it to the black neighborhood on Peters Road. We gotta stop this, people. We gotta stop this. We gotta look and have everybody part of this deal.
Mr. Henry, the only picture they had of the extending rail from the grain elevator went through a part of Arlington, then across a highway, and so it's another black neighborhood.
I agree with that too. I don't disagree with that. Colonel, I'm against that though, Colonel. I'm against that.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Fetters, would you please come up quickly and express your opinion on the timeline of how long we'll be looking at here? How's it going to affect Belle Chase?
Yes, ma'am. So Chris Fetters with LA 23 DevCo. So timeline has been kind of talked about through these conversations. The mainline extension is a 24-month project. That's what it's projected at right now. We've got about 18 months, and these are all ranges, right? But these are the center points of the ranges. About 18 months of the planning and the permitting phase. And this has been done with the consultation of rail experts and the railroads. Also with those groups, we're estimating somewhere between a 6 and a 9-month construction period for the mainline extension. If I can respond to the capacity study, I don't want to reopen it. That's required as we talk to the railroad for any operation. If you're going to add any additional rail or you're going to add any potential additional cargo to it, then in order for the railroads to participate, they expect the capacity study to be done. That study is to be done by HDR. As Mr. Ferrari was alluding to, it's done very early on, and then it's also constantly updated as things evolve with these different tenants that are downriver and within the mainline extension. So the mainline is a 24-month project.
And how long are we looking at for this to be effective? We're going to move to phase 2 once we get through phase 1, correct?
Yes,
So I think the question is, Upper Plaquemines wants to know what's the time span between how many rails are we looking at?
Sure.
Through Belle Chase versus completing phase 2? I know y'all kind of done some
We have a series of customers that we've been evaluating. Plus, we've had a lot of discussions with the New Orleans and Gulf Coast because they're obviously the operator in this area. So no matter what we may want to do, the rail is the limiting factor. So as our customers are right now, from the current usage of that rail, we're looking about adding a 1-unit train a week in the first year. The scale up of the customers that we have at the table completing the contracts to be signed would push us to Peters Road at about the conclusion of that year. So we need to start Peters Road if the capacity study checks and these assumptions are confirmed within about 90 days, maybe 120 days of starting this mainline project. So that would leave us somewhere between 9 and 12 months of utilization of the current alignment up through Belle Chase with the addition of about 1-unit train a week into that service line. And then after that, because of the scalability, we would need to have Peters Road in order to be functional. So the rail is the limiting factor for us in order to be able to help the port grow. So if Peters Road gets delayed to some of the points that were being made, then we have to scale back the utilization down on the terminal because there's just not service capacity that goes up through Belle Chase and into Gretna. It's just not feasible.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Fetters? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, so
Reverend Tyrone Edwards, 112 Tones Lane, downtown Phoenix. I just have 2 questions, and I don't know if I can get the answer today. I would like to know, just from the public, how much of money since the time that this port had been created have the parish put into the port? And second, how much money has the port generated to the parish since its interception? So I don't know if I can get that answer today, but that's the answer I think the public would like to know.
thank you. And this is why we're here today. Yeah, we have put a lot of money to move forward. We have no other solutions on gaining revenue for Plaquemine Parish except to move forward with a port. That's why Dr. Guya has always said that the hiring of Sandy Sanders is to come here, work for Plaquemine Parish and develop a port. The port is our economic engine to Plaquemine Parish. And he has been here for 7 years. His staff has worked hard and diligently to get to where we are today. And he's delivering what he's being asked to deliver. So thank you very much, and I'll call the question. It passes 5 yeas and 3 nays, and 1 absent. Thank you. It passes. All right, next.
Yeah.
Item 6C, an ordinance authorizing Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemine's Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, to purchase land owned by Reynold Thomas. Commissioner Blink.
Mr. Blink's not here, so I'm going to offer this. Next for a second. Second by, was that Kognovich?
Oh, bro.
Arboro. This was deferred because we had some typo error or language. I'll turn this over to Paul.
If I may,
Sam.
before we get started, Mr. Roussel also, I told him that I would personally go down and check to make sure that those ponds were not there, and I did, and they're not there. They're filled in.
I was just gonna say, if you guys would like to see a virtual map, I have it on the assessor's website. If you like for me to pull it up on the screen, just so we know, the public knows what property we're talking about. If we can,
Any questions from the board? From the public? Call a question?
And bring it up.
yeah, if you can just, oh, okay. Like for me to pull it up?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My apologies. I didn't realize we had an actual copy. I thought he meant on the board's website.
Yep, there it is. So this is part of what we call the piano keys, and this is the riverside of those piano keys, and that's where it's located. So relative to the port campus, to the left of here, just give me a second as it pulls up, it's just south of the main VG campus. And then the parcel 3, what we call parcel 3, this main green area here. And then these what we call these small parcels is what we call the piano keys on the land side and the riverside. And we're purchasing this blue shaded area here. And this is, again, obviously the directive of our board to move forward with these purchases.
Are any questions? Call a question? And it passes 8-0. Next.
Item 6D, an ordinance authorizing Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemine's Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, to purchase land owned by Numa C. Hero and Son. Commissioner Blank.
I'll offer it for Commissioner Blank. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Arboro. This is part of the piano keys. I'll turn it over to Paul.
Yeah, if I can put that on the map as well. Okay, so this is the property that the board, wait till it loads. This is the property that the board just voted to acquire. Relatively upriver from there, the blue shaded area, once the buffering ends. The blue shaded area is what we're purchasing right now.
Any questions from the board? From the audience?
Oh, my God.
Ms. Bochet?
How much are these properties costing us? What are we paying for them? Why can't this board and these legislations include the prices so that the public knows?
Mr. Matthews, can you answer?
Yeah, all the prices are included in the resolutions, which were sent out by distribution, which I believe, Ms. Barber, you have the list of those who've received that. But in every resolution, every introduction, it has the price.
Excuse me,
So for this
Paul, I know this, Paul, okay? But I'm talking about right here in this meeting, why are we not including the prices in the approved and voted on legislation that y'all are voting on?
This
I mean,
piece-
that would be a simple verbiage from somebody.
These lots are 79,000, is that correct? And I think we've talked about we're paying $10,000 an acre.
Correct.
Is that correct?
And it's in the resolution, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so that's for all of the property, that's Hero and?
Yes, sir.
That's the other property?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
So,
Oh, just Hero.
so let's see who knows.
Didn't we pay that for the previous vote?
There's two separate resolutions.
Sorry.
Right, so in each resolution, it shows the price that we're purchasing that particular property.
Yeah.
The answer to your question is, the first acquisition was $257,500. The second acquisition is $79,000.
Yes, sir.
79?
Correct.
79.
So 250 and 79, right?
Wait, I don't see
257,500.
57.5. Okay.
Any other questions? All right, call a question. It passes 8-0. Stacy?
Item 6E, an ordinance to amend and as amended to approve the Plaquemine Port, Harbor, and Terminal District 2021 operating budget of revenue and expenditures and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Blank.
I'm going to offer this. I ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Arbo. Administration?
Yes, ma'am. What we're asking for is for the current legal budget that we amend the budget to the original recommended amount that the port staff requested in November to 195, which is still a reduction from the budget from the previous year. Currently, at our pace, we've charged or spent or expended 94,000 plus for legal services. At that rate for 6 months, we are looking at 189,000 plus for the year, which would actually be around $5,600 less or under budget what we originally requested at the budget hearing in November. So we're asking just to go to that back to that amount.
So just to be clear, when you asked for the budget, it was cut, is that correct? The board cut your budget?
Yeah, we originally asked for 195, which I believe it was around 50 to 60 plus less than what we had last year. And so we reduced the budget already to 195, and at the current rate, we're going to hit that mark and actually be below it. However, during the budget hearing for 2021, which was done in 2020, there was an additional $70,000 cut by the board. So we're just asking that you guys just go back to what we originally recommended.
Thank you. Mr. Russo?
And just to be clear, my comments have been since January when you started the budget and after reviewing the legal fees, that you need to manage the legal fees in-house. And I know you keep telling me, well, I'm building a port. But when you're building a port, you don't need the port attorney to review the agendas, especially as short as they are. Those type of things that I see we get billed for are excessive billing. And I can't tell you enough times about that. So I don't think you're managing the legal fees at all. I think it's, pick up the phone and there goes the clock. Mm-hmm. And we talked about creating an in-house attorney here for the last several years. And, we got attorneys top-notch sitting in the audience that we pay $125,000 a year and get a hell of a lot of work out of. And I'm not sucking up or any, but it's the fact, And we here spending a couple $100,000 to let them read the agendas. So I'm going to say it one more time, and I'm not going to vote for this today until you show me that you're responsible and you're going to manage the legal fees.
I think the answer I got to that, Mr. Russo, was you're getting more than one lawyer. This is a group of lawyers that give the port advice on how to move forward with any kind of legal questions that the port has. Now, if the board says, let's hire a lawyer and get rid of that firm, then it's something we need to discuss. So, and then maybe we can discuss that for the next budget, so.
Ms. Newberry, we've discussed it for the last several years, and we don't get it. And I was assured that we were going to work on it for you. Now, when you say you get more lawyers because you hired a firm, when you look at those billings, those lawyers talking to each other are billing us. They're not sitting there talking to each other for free. When Rathburn talks to another lawyer in his firm, read it. He's billing us. Not only one, but two.
Any other comments from the board on this? Y'all look interested in hiring a lawyer for the port? No comment. Mr. Bartholomew?
That's my recommendation a long time ago. Lawyer on staff.
Okay, it's something we can address at the next meeting. Can you please add that to the agenda? Any questions from the audience?
Donald Valley. Madam Chair, I remember distinctly during our budget hearings on the port, the line item that was legal fees. I have listened quite intently for many years that you all basically have an attorney that represents the port, you all, which you all are the port now, and that frankly, the fees that were being charged already by this firm that you all felt were very excessive. Now, the principal of the firm's a good friend of mine. I've used him in the past when I was in the banking business. Very qualified people. But as Mr. Roussel says, and quite admirably, they've exceeded this and they've been watching this go on and on and on as it's occurring. They use the attorney just like another clerk in the office, not as representation. And I think, frankly, that you all do need one attorney that represents you all, and probably the one that you all have, and that you all can give advice to them as their board, which you all are the board, and don't need another advice from somebody else, and frankly, sued you all the last time it was out. You know, why do you want to hire a lawyer to sue you? I don't understand it. I'd fire him in a heartbeat. Now, frankly, I've fired lots of lawyers, and I've hired lots of lawyers over the years. He's a good man. He's a very, very nice fellow. But he utilizes like as a clerk in the office, just like you use an accounting tier 2 person. You all need your own lawyer that represents you all and can consult. They can consult with your lawyer. And I'm just going to say, I would not approve any more money. I'd cut it off and live within your budgets. That's what your budget's about. And you got a budget coming up in October, and you're going to look at some of these numbers. The budget you're getting now, frankly, it's not there. And Ms. Newberry, I didn't ask one of the questions, but since we're talking about budgets for just a minute, I didn't see anywhere in the budget projections that were presented earlier any allocation for this money that's needed for this railroad. Where's it coming from? Maybe you know.
Shimbrell, can you answer that?
There will be a number of budget amendments presented, as I stated, due to the Venture Global lease and also the legislation that passed today.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Call a question. It fails 4-3. And 1 abstain, sorry about that.
Item 6F, a resolution of the Plaquemine Parish Council acting as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port, Harbor, and Terminal District, authorizing and directing the initiation of litigation related to the proposed Belle Chase Bridge project, authorizing and directing the port chairman, Richie Blink, to engage special counsel for such litigation, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner LaFrance.
Yes, I will defer this item to our next council meeting, which will be in Belle Chase, August the 12th. Yesterday, I received a lot of phone calls behind this Belle Chase Bridge, so I'll give the opportunity for everybody in the parish to come out and voice your opinion. Again, that's August the 12th at the council office in Belle Chase. Thank you. I will defer this item.
Thank you, Mr. LaFrance.
Item 7A, introduction of resolutions wherein suspension is being sought. There are none. Item 7B, discussion of grants. Commissioner Newberry.
Yeah, this was discussed with another board member here, and Paul is in charge of the grants, so if you can kind of elaborate on the grants. We've hired a grant writer, and I think we've six grants we hired her to do for the year. You recall?
Yes, ma'am. We have hired Miller Natakis Group, which the lead is Becky Natakis, to work on grants for the port, mainly infrastructure grants that will not only benefit the port but also benefit the parish. And as a result, the initial grant that she's working on that came up was a federal infrastructure grant, which we are working with CHS, our grain company here, to try to expand their facility. And what they need initially is a new dock. So the new dock is going to cost about $39 million to build. However, there's grant money out there to bring that cost down significantly. And so by July 30th, we hope that we'll be able to apply for that application as the port. The port would construct and own the dock and then also lease the dock to CHS. If that dock is able to be built, that creates the catalyst for CHS to now invest as little as $50 million into their current facility. As of right now, they are not at the optimal mark of production, and this would help do that. That could be between 50 to 70 million. As a result, obviously, that would bring in ad valorem taxes to the parish. And the agreement that we would have with the grant as the owner of the dock, they would put up the match money. So the port would not be at risk for putting up the match that you need for these federal grants. Also, usually for a federal grant, you need about 20% of the matching cost. However, if you're able to put in 25, 30, or anything over 20%, your possibility of receiving the grant increases. So as a result, we are working directly with CHS in coordination with Becky Natakis so that we can try to get this new dock for CHS so that they can invest $50 million additional dollars into their facility and optimize their production.
Mr. Russo?
So we will own the dock, it'll be on their property,
Correct. But we would own the dock and lease it to them.
and we'll have a lease back for them.
Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Correct.
And in the future, I think it's prudent for you to be able to have some communication with the board so we'll know what grants that we are able to apply for before we get to the end of the six and we don't know, what we missed and what we didn't even apply for.
Yes,
Because
sir.
this is the first we hear about this.
Okay, yes, sir. So this is the first project that really has come up and really matured over the last few weeks. We haven't finalized what the other projects will be, but what we have done is work with Ms. Natakis to say what we need are infrastructure projects, if you have any grants out there, that will, one, look at potential upgrades or potential operation funding for ferries, potential funds for water infrastructure on the east bank and west bank of the river. And frankly, I would like all of the board's input on any other possible needs for the parish. One that I'm missing is also funding for a brand new replacement for the Point Celeste pump station is another project. So we would like to provide her with potential infrastructure projects, and then she goes out and finds those grants in which those projects would fit. So if there's any potential projects I'm missing, please let me know. We'd love to communicate that to her. And any ones that you guys would like to make priority, we would love to hear from the entire board to do that.
Could you provide us a list that you've already submitted so we'll know what's there? And if we see a supplemental project, we will give it to you?
Yes, sir. And if any other projects that may not be both port and parish benefit, but even just a benefit to the parish, I've directed her to look at those and send those to the board's way as well. I think we will have a great opportunity, in my opinion, for potential rural development grants, and I've directed her to look at those as well. So I hope that this is a great opportunity for all of us to work together on this and working with Ms. Natakis. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the board? From the public? Good. Okay, next.
Item 8, approval of the July 8th, 2021 meeting minutes.
So offered.
Second.
Mr. Russo offered, Mr. LaFrance second. Seven yeas.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Who second?
I'll second.
Mr. Russo second. All right. 6-0, we adjourned at 4:55. 4:55.